Alright, welcome to the video guys, Salt here. Today we're going to be looking at the Paris Prime and its Incarnon mode. Now in this weapon video series, I take a weapon and I build it out and I test that weapon on its own merits, meaning I don't mix it with any kind of external factors like Warframe abilities, Warframes doing damages, pets putting statuses on enemies, things like that. I just test the weapon by itself. And I just leave it up to the viewer to make their own intelligent conclusions Salt put fire rate on this weapon, but I'm using Wisp that gives me fire rate. Maybe I don't need to put fire rate on the weapon. Things like that. So, okay, let's get into the Paris Prime. So it's a primary bow. Get into the build here. Now, the innate things about the Paris Prime is that it has a punch through of 3 innately without you having to do anything to it. And then the Incarnon mode actually has an infinite punch through, so that's even better. So there's no real reason to put punch through on the weapon like sometimes we do with Prime Shred, for instance. The other thing about it is that the Incarnon mode also produces heat without having to have heat on the weapon, which is nice. And then the other interesting thing about the Paris is that it comes with a specific Paris mod called Basage Ball, I think is how you pronounce it. And what it does is it restores 300 health every time you produce 3 status effects. That doesn't have to, they don't actually have to be 3 status effects at the same time. It just kind of counts up once you produce 3 status effects and it restores 300 health. And it also gives you 90% status chance. So, looking at this, you'd be like, oh, it's probably not really worth putting on the weapon because it's, meh, whatever. But, well, it's an Exilis mod. So for an Exilis mod, that's actually really strong, 90% status chance. I wouldn't use this mod if it was if it needed to go into a regular slot, I would not use this mod because it's kind of niche, right? 300 health every 3 status effects, whatever. 90 status chance is nice, but there's other ways to get status chance that are a little bit better. But this is an Exilis mod, and Exilis mods are usually pretty garbage, and so that makes this really good. So that's just another unique thing about the Paris, is that you have that extra little mod that only it has. So let's go to the actual configuration here in A. I'm going to go out and come back in so I can clear my data sheet there. Okay. So, for the mods here, we're going to be going for Galvanized Chamber for multi-shot, Galvanized Scope for crit chance, Serration for flat damage, Hunter Munitions for slash procs on criticals. Now, as I've said in a lot of other videos, the slash procs that you get are dependent on the base damage of the weapon. So Hunter Munitions on this weapon is amazing because the damage on this weapon is really good per shot. So, you have the regular one here at 1200, but the charge shots at 2000, and then the Incarnon mode's even higher at 2700. So the slash procs that you produce on this weapon through Hunter Munitions will a lot of times just completely one-shot an enemy once you get your first tick after a second. So really good on this weapon. Critical Delay for crit chance. Vital Sense for critical damage. Bladed Rounds for more critical damage. And Vile Acceleration for fire rate. Now that fire rate is going to equate into the bow being drawn back and shot quicker, basically. So that's why we use it. And then we're going to go for Basage Ball in the Exilis slot. And there is another option for the Exilis slot here, and it would be Terminal Velocity, 60% projectile speed. I just feel like this mod, it being specific for the Paris Prime, why not use it? Why not kind of forego a little bit of projectile speed? This weapon doesn't really need it. It benefits a little bit from projectile speed, but it doesn't need it, is the thing. So I think you just get more out of Basage Ball. You get a little bit more status chance. Now, as you're going to see, and you're also probably noticed that we have no statuses on the no status mods on the weapon itself, is because this is mostly a one-shot build. You're killing things in one hit, sometimes two hits, but you're not going to be stacking viral up to 10 on enemies because they're going to be dying in the first hit. So there's not a lot of reason to be going for statuses on this weapon. And so like that's another reason why I was like, status chance with Bisage Ball, but you can produce some natural statuses with like heat, impact, and stuff. So I still think this one is worth it, just for the uniqueness that it only comes on the Paris Prime, and there's not much better Exilis mods that kind of compete with it. So, and then in the Arcane slot here, we're going to be going for Primary Deadhead for a 360% flat damage increase, a 30% headshot multiplier increase, and negative weapon recoil, which doesn't really matter. I don't believe there's any recoil on this weapon at all. So that is the build for this. Again, we are kind of foregoing any statuses, and that's mostly because this is a one or two shot weapon. There's not really, you're not stacking statuses on this. So that is why we are completely foregoing statuses. Now, let us get into the evolutions. So, first evolution, of course, is nothing. It's just, you've unlocked the evolution. That's it. Second evolution here, and this is the reason I'm using Protea. So, as you know, most of my videos I use Inaros. Well, this weapon is a little bit weird in that the first evolution is extremely powerful if you have overshields. So that's kind of unfortunate for some Warframes. So Guardian's Might. It increases your base damage by plus 20. Base damage increase is gigantic because everything scales off of base damage. And then with Overshield, you get plus 74. That's huge. That's gigantic. And so Guardian's Might is amazing. The only problem with it is that you need to have Overshields. So this is not really an Incarnon for every Warframe. Now let's look at the other option here. Deadly Pace. Increases damage by plus 20. So same thing as here, plus 20. And then with a sprint speed of 1.2 or higher, you get plus 80% fire rate. It's not really that great. What that would mean is that you could probably take off Viler Acceleration and put another mod there, but there's not really many mods that are great, especially when you're foregoing status chance. Like, what else to put there? Maybe Heavy Caliber, but that probably wouldn't be good. So I don't think Deadly Pace is very good. I think with the Paris Prime, you just accept the fact that it's an amazing weapon, but you need to have Overshields for it to be like truly at its peak. So it's not for every Warframe. It's kind of like a niche weapon for specific Warframes that can produce Overshield. So I'm going to be going with Guardian's Might. In the third evolution slot here, these are all utility picks, and all of these picks are actually quite good. So there's Marksman Focus, which is negative zoom, which I like because I hate being zoomed in all the way. There is Swift Deliverance, which is plus 60% projectile speed, which, going with Basage Bal, the Exilis mod we went with, Swift Deliverance would make up for not having terminal velocity. So that's another amazing pick. So Swift Deliverance, Marksman's Focus if you just hate the zoom like I do. And then this one here, Ardent Trigger. On a punch through hit, you get plus 40 fire rate for 6 seconds. I actually don't like this, and it's because it's inconsistent. Like, not every one of your hits is going to be a punch through hit. And so sometimes when you draw the bow back, it's going to be slower, and sometimes when you draw the bow back, it's going to be quicker. And I don't like that inconsistency. I want my bow to feel the exact same every time I go to shoot it. And so that's why I don't like Ardent Trigger. But these two here, the negative 30 zoom and the plus 60 projectile speed, these are amazing, both of these here. The 30 zoom is a little bit more of like a quality of life improvement, whereas the Swift Deliverance would probably make your weapon a little bit better. I'm going to go with the negative zoom myself, though. Not really that big of a deal, these two. And then in the fourth and final evolution slot, there are some choices here, and there are some unfortunate things about these choices. So we'll go to the middle one first, because the middle one is the one we are not choosing. Increase the status chance by plus 60. Again, we don't really care about status. This is a 1 or 2 shot weapon. You're not going to be stacking statuses on your enemies. And I mean, for the hell of it, we put Bisage Ball in our Exilus slot, which gives us 90 status, so we don't really need any more than that. So this is not an option, Elemental Balance. So we have the one on the left and the one on the right. So the one on the left here is increases critical chance by plus 40 on undamaged enemies. That's not that great because, as you'll see, we're pretty much red critting all the time anyway, so you don't need any more critical chance. But you also get increased critical damage multiplier by plus 2 times on undamaged enemies. So that's the real reason you pick the left one there, is that critical damage multiplier by plus 2 times. Now, the unfortunate thing about Vicious Promise is that the enemies have to be undamaged. That's easy to do if you're solo. If you're in a group, like you're kind of like off on your own, which I don't really recommend if you're in a group, you should be playing together. It's just that it's not super consistent, because what if you're in a group with a Saren who's like doing damage to the whole map? What if your pet is like doing damage to things? You don't really get full effect of Vicious Promise all the time. I mean, obviously you'll get some effect sometimes, but not all the time. Now, the other option here, and this one here is, I think, what you should be going for, but I'll explain the other unfortunate thing about this. So this is Striking Succession. On hit, you increase your damage by plus 15 for 3 seconds, and it stacks 4 times. And that's a base damage increase, which is amazing. So, really good. And I would probably go for this one over Vicious Promise. Now, I did a lot of testing in the simulacrum, and I could not see that this evolution was even working. It's hard to see sometimes because there's like a range of damage numbers. And so if anyone, like in the comment section, if they've done testing themselves or if they've done a lot of research into this weapon, maybe they'll have a better answer. But out of the testing I did, I could not see Striking Succession actually increasing my damage. And that's bad. I mean, it's obviously useless at that point. And so I would pick it over Vicious Promise, but because I couldn't see any actual damage coming out of it, I'm going to go with Vicious Promise instead. But if there's ever a patch or anything where they address this, like the Striking Succession, I believe this will be the best option out of these two here. But again, if anyone in the comments has any more information on Striking Succession and why it doesn't seem like it's increasing damage, or maybe there's a bug or a glitch that I'm just not really aware of. But so for simplicity's sake, I'm going with Vicious Promise only because this actually works. Okay, so again, we're going to be doing a 10-minute Kuva Survival on Steel Path, and then we're going to be doing a 10-minute Lua Conjunction on Steel Path. I don't mix this with any external factors, and so because of this, I'm going to be using, I usually use an Inaros, but this time I'm using a Protea, because again, I have to give myself overshields for this weapon to get its full effect. So I'm going to be using a Protea. Nothing on the Protea herself actually increases weapon damage. I'm not going to be casting Roar. The only thing I'm going to be casting is the fully held in shield orbs. I'm not going to be casting the shrapnel orbs. I'm going to hold it in and cast shield orbs, and that's it. So nothing on her mods or on her arcanes affect weapon damage, and I have a pet with no sentinel weapon and no mods on the pet that increased weapon damage. So let us get into this Kuva Survival. Let me make sure I have the right Paris build. I don't have that weird blank config. I don't think I did. Nope. All right, so again, the only thing I'm going to be casting, you're going to see me do this once in a while. Oops, that's it, wrong button. Holding the 1, that way I can cast these little shield orbs. That's the only thing you're going to see me cast once in a while, just so I can get overshield. So as you can see, it's a red crit weapon. It's also kind of like a hallway destroyer, where you kind of want to set up at in a hallway and just kind of aim head height and kill everything in a hallway. And that's the reason we don't go with status on this weapon, is because there's no reason. These enemies are dying in one hit. We're not going to stack viral to 10 on these guys. They're dead in one hit. Some of them survive, 2 hits, but I have to be a little bit more careful on Protea when I'm doing these videos, just because Anaros is just a big, dumb Warframe that doesn't really die, so I don't really have to worry too much unless I get the Acolyte that tries to make me kill myself. Malice coming out. But on Protea, I could accidentally not pay attention and not give myself overshields and die. Now, the actual regular mode of the Paris isn't bad either. It's just that it doesn't have that wide scythe kind of attack that hits a lot of enemies in a wide lane. Now, there are a lot of Incarnon weapons that are kind of like this one, where they have really powerful effects, but they have conditionals that might not be great on a lot of different Warframes. There's a lot of good effects that are you have to have 450 or more armor, and so you wouldn't have that on a shield frame or on a rolling guard frame, unless the Warframe itself has a really high armor value. So in this weapon's case, it's the overshields. Your Warframe needs to be able to produce and keep overshields. The easiest one for that, of course, is going to be Hildren. I just didn't want to do this with Hildren because Hildren's Pillage strips armor, and I didn't want to show... Again, I try not to mix this with any external things. And so I didn't want to run Hildren and just have everyone be armor stripped, because then it really wouldn't show what the weapon would look like at its base form. So this weapon's going to be all red crits unless you get, I think it's 3 maybe. If you get down to 3 stacks of Galvanized Scope, you'll start seeing some oranges, and then once you get a few reds, once you get a few headshots, you'll be back up to full reds. I just get lazy sometimes. But I mean, even oranges are going to do a crap load of damage, so it doesn't really matter too much. Alright, so we're at 5 minutes in. We haven't gotten the Acolyte yet. I probably should head to the life support area and, like, hit one life support. This weapon's doing a really good job of killing. Like, it's keeping the yellow life supports, like, flowing. So I haven't really had to chase life supports too much. I am going to run over there, though, and hit one. Because when an Acolyte comes out, I want to be able to not have to worry about my life supports. Alright, so here comes the Acolyte. Let's see how it does against him. Oh, gotta be careful here. Almost forgot I wasn't a Naros. I was letting the Acolyte just beat on me. There he is, beating on me again. I lost track of where he was. I don't play Protea too much. I think when her Prime comes out, I'll play her a lot more. But I'm not a huge Protea player. Oh, you know what? This is Mania. That's why I'm not doing a lot of damage. He's the Zephyr Acolyte that puts Turbulence on himself. That way he blocks bullets or any kind of non-AoE weapons. Which this isn't technically an AoE weapon. It just has a very large hitbox. So as you see there, it's not doing... Sometimes the Turbulence shield will come down and I'll be able to do damage to him. There we go, he died. I think of the slash proc that I applied killed him. So not the best Acolyte to test on just because that Turbulence shield is really annoying. Alright, let's hit some life supports here. Yeah, it should be good. We can go back to the main pack. So even playing solo, as you see, like a lot of these dudes are not full health when I'm shooting them. Like they've been damaged a bit, either by like a shot that has punched through to them or nicked them. So that's why I think that last evolution, if it does end up working for the weapon, it'll be the way to go instead of the undamaged enemies take 2 times crit damage. Although that was not terrible either. It's just that it's not always going to be effective when enemies aren't at full health, of course. I built my Protea to be a shield and adaptation Protea. I like her, but I feel like I might, when Protea Prime comes out, I might make a health and armor Protea instead. Just because she doesn't have super high base shields, and she doesn't have any passive that increases her over shields. So like I can play my shield and adaptation Harrow. I can play my shield and adaptation, of course, Hildren. Okay, let's get out of here. So we're at 586 kills in 10 minutes. That is well above average. It's really good. I just have to find the exit, which I don't know where it's going to be. Maybe it's up here. Yep. Yeah, Harrow, I mean, like Harrow, you can make a successful shield and adaptation build because he has a passive that gives him double over shields. So he can end up with like 5,000-6,000 shields. Hildren, of course, she has really high base shield, so she can end up with 10,000-11,000 shields. Protea, on the other hand, she doesn't have any of those things, so making her a shield adaptation frame, like as you saw, it worked, but the higher you get in Steel Path, the less efficient it becomes. And so when Protea Prime comes out, I might think about making her a health and armor frame instead of shield and adaptation. We'll see. I'm not really too sure yet. I don't have a lot of experience on Protea. Okay, let us get into the Lua Conjunction. We'll smash out 10 minutes there. So that was 586 kills on average weapons. In 10 minutes, I usually get about 350 to 400 kills. So that was well above average. That was very good.
These foes deserve your respect. Honor them with quick deaths, and I with your victory.
These guys love to steal my weapons. All right, so let's start this here. Again, the only thing I'm going to be using is my 1, and it's the held 1. I'm going to give myself a little bit of energy here, just so I can get my overshields on. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of rolling guard builds, so I usually go health and armor or shield and adaptation for my survivability. I mean, there is certain content that you have to go rolling guard for. You know, if you're going to do 60 eyes, you have to go rolling guard. If you're doing level cap, you have to go rolling guard. But other than that, sometimes going rolling guard will just neuter you. So this is a good example of a room that's not the best for the Paris Prime. You know, you usually want like hallways where you can line everyone up. But even in like circular rooms like this, you can try to get like enemies lined up pretty well, so you can get a few punch through shots. You just have to play to, you know, the weapon strengths basically. The weapon's really good in hallways. Try to be in hallways. I've been a little sick for the past week. That's why I was kind of low on the amount of videos coming out. I think I only did like 2 videos the whole week, so I do apologize for that. I'm feeling a lot better, and so I am down to get into it hardcore this week. And that's another reason why I'm putting out a video on the weekend, just because I wanted to like make up a little bit for the week. I know one video is not really going to make up for the whole week, but hopefully it's a little bit appreciated. The other thing, I actually need help from people watching this, especially like on YouTube when this gets uploaded to YouTube, is to let me know how the sound sounds. Because I had someone complain about it, and I'm actually completely with him, because I've actually been feeling the same way, that my videos sound very low. And I don't want it to sound like that. I want it to be very, like, audible. I don't want it to be, you know, excessively loud, but I want it to be audible. And I messed around with my sound settings a little bit. I hope it's a bit less low. Like, you shouldn't have to turn it all the way up. But if you are still having to turn it like all the way up to be able to hear me, please let me know, and I will try to figure out something else for the next video. I'll basically continue to tweak it until it's at a comfortable level for everyone, including myself. Like I said, I also wasn't very happy with the level of audio. So at 5 minutes, all right, we have Malice. He's the most dangerous guy. He's going to put a bubble on me. There it is. I'm going to roll out of the bubble, and I should be safe now to kill him. If you try to shoot while you have the bubble on you, it's basically a mag bubble, so you'll end up killing yourself. All of the acolytes, they have like a theme with a Warframe. Like there's the one that uses Zephyr's Turbulence. There's a Necros acolyte that spawns dead acolytes that were previously killed. Thanks, M2. Yeah, I wanna make sure the audio is okay. Not so much the quality. I mean, I know I obviously could get a better headset, and I plan to get a better headset in the future. But the actual volume of it, I just want to make sure like the volume is not way too low. Alright, let's get this other Thrax dealt with here. Might have to hit this right here. He's like in the floorboards or something right here. Doesn't help I have these battleists like spinning around and whacking me with their damage. Again, I'm just testing the weapon. If I was a regular Prody, I'd be spamming my 1 here. There we go. Okay. Let me run to these life supports. I'm going to hit like 2 of them. We'll try to stabilize here, and then we'll get ready for the 10-minute mark when the next set of Thraxes come out. Mine sounds fine, M2. I appreciate it. You know, and I take criticism well. I mean, you can even tell me, hey, Salt, your audio sounds like a big bag of shit. And I'll be like, oh, thank you for your criticism. But it is good to hear that. I personally do feel like it's a little bit low, so I kind of want to. I'm just tweaking it a little bit. Like I'm also not very tech savvy, so that also hurts me with adjusting things because I don't exactly know the optimal ways to adjust things. So I adjusted a few things today, but I don't know how much of an effect they're actually going to be. Oh, almost fell in that hole. I didn't know there was a hole there. Alright, we are at 8 minutes. We got 2 more minutes until the second set of Thraxes come out. I think we'll be able to stabilize. We'll see. Oh, I knew he was going to steal my weapon as soon as he did that little move in front of me. Just try to get them all in like a linear area. We have Violence coming out. Violence, all he does is turn off abilities. It might be kind of bad for Protea, because I think he can turn off my overshields. Maybe, maybe not. I can't remember. No, my overshields are still up. I don't think he can. Alright, Violence is down. Try to farm as many of these little yellow ones as we can before the 10-minute mark, and then we'll have to deal with those Thraxes. I'm actually probably going to run over to that life support so I can fight the Thraxes over there, so I can hit that life support. No, don't climb on the tree.
Don't worry, I'll take very good care of Vermina. I have just the spot in the kennel for her.
Alright, let's see here. Let's get rid of these Thraxes. Of course, they're going into invulnerable mode.
They are draining your life support, and fast. Eliminate them quickly. The queens have sought out Warframes before. Vor sought to present them with yours. We do not let them learn how Vermina.
Got him. Alright, so we passed the 10-minute mark. We're probably going to run out of life support right now, but that's okay. We have technically passed the 10-minute mark, so let's find the extract and we will head there. So in 10 minutes, we got 436 kills, which is a little bit above average, and it's also expected on Lua Conjunction to get a little bit less kills because you spend more time fighting, like Eximuses and stuff. So that's pretty good. Above average in, well above average in Kuva Survival, and a bit above average in Lua Conjunction. So the Paris Prime is a very strong weapon. Really, like S tier if used in a hallway, and like maybe like low A tier when used in a like a regular room that's not a hallway. I'm just throwing out those tiers. I don't know. Really, really good in a hallway. Kind of okay, above average in a not a hallway. All right, let's go over the build one more time, and then that'll be it for the Paris Prime. So Paris Prime, it is a primary weapon, primary bow. The build, the innate things about it is that it's going to have a 3 punch through without having to do anything with the weapon. And then also the Incarnon mode, like a lot of them, it gives it heat, so you get a little bit of heat there. So for the build, we're going to be going for Galvanized Chamber for multi-shot, Galvanized Scope for crit chance, Serration for flat damage, Hunter Munitions for slash on critical, Now, 100 munitions is dependent on your weapon damage. If you're using a little assault rifle, then you're going to get these little piddly slash procs. But if you're using a bigger weapon like a bow, a rocket launcher, a sniper rifle, you get these you might only get one slash proc, but that slash proc is going to be gigantic. And so that's why 100 munitions is really good on this weapon, is that we get those really gigantic slash procs. Critical delay for crit chance. Vital sense for crit damage. Bladed rounds for more crit damage. And vial acceleration for fire rate. And as you see, we don't go any statuses, and that's mostly just because this is a 1 or 2 shot weapon. Like, you're killing trash in 1 or 2 shots. You're killing even eggs misses. You're killing in like 2 shots usually. The bigger things like Thraxes are, yes, they take a few extra shots to kill, but I don't think this weapon is worth building for like viral just because of Thraxes. Everything else is dying in 1 or 2 shots, so there's really no reason to be building for status here. Now in the Exila slot, we have this weird mod that is a Paris Prime mod only. And I'm going to kind of go against everything I just said, where this does give us plus 90% status. And it has this little effect where every 3 status effects it restores 300 health. It doesn't have to be 3 status effects at the same time. It actually kind of tracks it. So I probably should have said this in the video, but if you scroll back and watch the video, you can see in the top right corner where all the buffs are, there's like a little plus icon in a circle, and that's the Basage Ball effect. So it just tracks, like, it'll be like 1, and then when you get another status, it'll go 2, and then you get another status, it'll go 3, and then it'll proc, and it'll give you 300 health. And then it'll go back to 1 when you get the next status. So it tracks how much status effects you get, and it gives you 300 health every time you produce 3 status effects. So it's a nice little thing. You could also just go with terminal velocity. This is more, like, terminal velocity is just more of a traditional thing that's always going to be good in the Exo slot. I'm just going to go with this Basage Ball because I like the theme of it. Hey, it's a Paris Prime only mod. Terminal velocity doesn't help the weapon that much differently. So if I can have this mod that gives me health once in a while, gives me extra status chance, which we don't really care about too much. We don't really care about statuses, but hey, whatever. And then in the Arcane slot, we're going to have Primary Deadhead for 360% flat damage, 30% headshot multiplier, and then the negative weapon recoil doesn't really matter, but that's okay. So that is the Paris Prime there. We're going to go over the evolutions one more time as well. So first evolution obviously is nothing. Second evolution is Guardian's Might. So increases your damage by plus 20, and when you have overshields, increases your damage by plus 74. So this is an Incarnon that is specific to certain Warframes. So there are other Incarnons in the game that, like, you have to have over 450 armor. For some kind of effect to be active. In this weapon's case, it's going to be overshields. You need to have overshields for this to be very strong. So it's just kind of how this weapon is. This weapon's going to do way worse on like a Naros or anything that can't produce overshields. So only use this weapon if you can produce overshields. The other option here is Deadly Pace. You don't need to have overshields for Deadly Pace, but it's a lot worse. It's just 20 extra damage, just like Guardian's Might. But instead of that plus 74 you get from Guardian's Might, you get this with a sprint speed higher than 1.2, you get plus 80 fire rate. And keep in mind, most of the fire rate mods that you put on weapons have 2-time effect for bows. This doesn't have a 2-time effect because it's not a mod that gives that. So this is just 80 fire rate. So I mean, it's still okay, but it's not great. Guardian's Might is really your answer here, but you have to be using this with overshields is the only thing. In the third evolution slot here, we have 2 picks that are good picks for kind of utility. We have Marksman's Focus, which is going to decrease your zoom by 30%. I like that one. It's a little bit of a quality of life pick for me. And then the other really good one is Swift Deliverance. So you get that plus 60 projectile speed that you would have gotten by going terminal velocity. So that's a really good pick too. I just hate the zoom on this weapon, so I go with negative zoom. But Swift Deliverance is probably even better. Now the other one here, Ardent Trigger, I don't like this, and it's because on a punch through hit you get a little bit more fire rate. Now the problem is not every shot is going to be a punch through hit, and so some shots are going to be slower, some shots are going to be quicker. I don't like that. I don't like to not know how long I have to hold the button down for. One second. Sorry about that. I don't like to not know how long I have to hold the button down for. I want it to be the same all the time. So that's why I don't like Ardent Trigger. I don't think it's a good option. And then finally, in the last pick here, we have two unfortunate cases. So the first one that's not one of those two, and it's the weaker pick, is going to be the Elemental Balance. You get increased status chance by plus 60. We're not picking that because we're not really going on for statuses on this weapon. So the two unfortunate stories are the first one here, Vicious Promise. It increased your critical chance by plus 40 on undamaged enemies. We don't really care about that part because we're at red crits anyway. We don't need any more crit chance. But we get crit damage multiplier by plus 2 times on undamaged enemies. That's really good. That's nice. But enemies have to be undamaged. And sometimes that's hard to do, especially in a group. Excuse me. All right, sorry about that. I thought I was over my sickness, and I think I am, but I'm still coughing a bit. The other one here, Striking Succession. This, I believe, is actually better and more consistent than Vicious Promise. But the unfortunate story on the Striking Succession is that I don't believe it works. I did testing with this, did a lot of testing with it, and I could not tell the difference with and without Striking Succession. There was, every time you shoot, you should see a damage increase. On hit, you hit for 3 seconds, you have a damage increase. And I could not tell any damage increases that were happening. Now, if someone in the comments section or someone that's done more research with this can give me more information, I would love it, because I would like to go with Striking Succession because it seems like it would be more consistent than this one that only works on undamaged enemies. But the fact is, I couldn't find it. I couldn't see it actually working, and so that's why I'm going to be going for Vicious Promise there. Okay, and that's it for the Paris Prime. Pretty good weapon, definitely worth building out. It's a very strong Incarnon, especially if you're a hallway hero. If you're a hallway hero, it probably competes with the Torrid. But without being in a hallway, it's a little bit more just like slightly above average. But that should be it. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you liked it, give it a like. And thank you. Have a good day, guys.